Hello, I'm just another community member of Lost Ark, but I would like to share with you this suggestion and theory of integrating the market auction house with the bound gold system. Then I will follow up with theorizing the impacts this may have on bots, busting, auto counts, inflation, and other potential side effects on other existing systems or inconvenient measures that have been put in place so far. So let's first provide some context before getting deeper into the video. All the gold in the game is generated and printed from doing raids, whether it's Belshazzar, A-Gear, Behemoth, Echidna, Daymine, Akan, or etc. The gold from these raids is then divided between being unbound and bound. Players then either spend that gold they earn from raids on personal vertical progression systems such as honing, advanced honing, elixirs, transcendence, karma, and etc. They can also use their earned gold from raids to purchase items from the market auction house or just accumulate millions of gold without actively spending any of it. So for the rest of this video, I would like you to just keep in mind that players' main revenue of gold only comes from two places, from doing weekly raids to selling items to other players. But if you have to remember one thing, then remember this. Most if not all the gold laundering or funneling takes place in the market auction house, whether it's from bots, buzzers, alt accounts to RMT or G2G enjoyers. Which is why I'm trying to shift everybody's perspective to addressing the key common denominator in many of these top issues of Lost Ark while trying to be efficient and effective. The theory behind the suggestion of integrating the market auction house with the bound gold system would result in a scenario that whenever someone lists and sells certain categories of items on the market auction house, then they would get bound gold. They would not be able to purchase anything on the market auction house with that bound gold that they gained from selling those specific items, but instead, the bound gold will be dedicated to being used on personal vertical progression systems. However, this does not mean that everything being listed and sold on the market and auction house will result in bound gold. What it really means is that there will still be a few categories of items that can continue to be listed and sold for tradable gold, which would be Tier 4 1680 Ancient Accessories, Tier 4 Honing Materials, Tier 4 Gems, and Royal Crystal items from the F4 in-game shop, as these are the only items that make sense to continue being traded for unbound gold, as pretty much everything else is farmable in massive amounts by bots. Let's step back and think about it for a second. Currently, players have so many options to choose from on what to invest in with their limited weekly gold from raids. Players have to pick between buying accessories, gems, relic books, to honing, advanced honing, karma, and other vertical progression systems. So what would the harm be of integrating the market auction house with the bound gold system? Everybody is still doing their weekly raids for tradable gold. Everybody is still interacting with the market auction house. Everybody is still free to list the items for whatever prices they want to sell it at. It's just that at the end of the day, buyers are spending their tradable gold they earn from raids to purchase items, while the seller in most transactions receives it as bound, aside from the previous stated exceptions for tradable gold. The integration of the market auction house with the bound gold system will pave the way to indirectly support all players, as the team can then consider undoing the implementation of trusted status so that it will be easier for anybody to list and sell life skill materials or anything they farm for bound gold, while at the same time hurting bot operations and bot sustainability. It will also open the possibility of undoing the nerfs to raid gold rewards and discard the distribution of it between unbound to bound, which means giving all players more leeway to speed up their personal progression. Most importantly, this will allow AGS to renovate the events catered for new and returning players by making it all extremely juiced to the point where players are enabled to make a minimum of 6 1585 year score level characters to even potentially providing actual support to hit 1620 on all of them. I may be getting slightly off topic here, but I just want to briefly theorize with you that the core issue of new and returning players is their retention rate. What better way to improve it than by actually giving them more gold earning rate content opportunity to do across 6 characters, which then can be funneled into one of their characters of choice to search further into endgame, while everybody else is at. I can give a more detailed suggestion and theory on how to improve the new and returning player experience, but that requires the prerequisite framework to set up its success while going off on a tangent. So let's go back to the main suggestion of this video, which is once again the integration of the market auction house with the bound gold system. My apologies for repeating this over and over again, but I would like to really emphasize this suggestion so that everybody can think about it, to come to their own conclusions, to being inspired and voicing your version of this theory so that it raises the odds of the team adding it into the game. Anyways, let's now dive a little deeper on how the integration of the market auction house with the bound gold system will impact bots, busing, alt accounts, inflation, and maybe a few other additional tangents that are relevant to this suggestion. Everybody is aware of bots and the ineffectiveness of all the measures so far to address them that only serve to further inconvenience real players. There might have been a turning point very recently from the anti-cheat team in AGS on what they've been cooking up with detecting old chaos bot files and building from the ground up new ideas to fight against bots. But realistically, bot developers will simply just reverse engineer any anti-bot measures to get their bot operations running again, as it is their livelihood and means of surviving. The ones who are more desperate will come out on top, and of course bot developers are always the more desperate ones, as they need to secure their main source of income. Banning bots is also not an effective solution because there are plenty of new bots to immediately replace them. Realistically, they have multiple different versions of bots ready to be subbed in, as why wouldn't they have backups? Who in the right mind would wait to get hit first and then react to it, then preemptively prepare for future scenarios? Anyways, just imagine Lost Ark as a sinking boat, taking in water since the start of this live service. The team has been frantically bailing out the water when their priority should be to patch the hole in the boat. It's time for the team to shift their focus onto a new perspective exclusive to Lost Ark that cannot be reverse engineered, and the team can implement by targeting the supply lines of bot operations to render it all unsustainable. Bots' strength lies in their numbers and their automatic programming, but their weakness specifically in Lost Ark is how they replenish their supply to support their transaction with players through G2G. If bots' ability to obtain unbound gold is uprooted, then they cease to serve their purpose, as they will only be obtaining bound gold from selling off their bot farm items. Bots' source of income for tradable gold then would become to rely on getting bust, but thanks to the new party finder policy change, this process to match automatic bots with manual drivers becomes very convoluted, and may no longer be worth the effort to keep up bot operations in Lost Ark, as there is a real cost in reality to operate bot farms. That being said, while bots could stick around by relying on sheer numbers to farm tier 4 honing materials or tier 4 gems to sell for unbound gold, they will only further increase the supply of those items, while the price will continue to gradually drop to the point they cannot generate enough profit to justify their real-life operation costs for their bot farms. I will go on a small tangent on gems later in this video, but the takeaway for this section is that the integration of the market's auction house with the bound gold system, bot supply line of replenishing their gold funds will be severely impacted and realistically increase the likelihoods of bots ceasing their mass-scale operations on Lost Ark, as they will no longer be sustainable or profitable. Now let's move on to busing. Essentially, buzzers will only be able to obtain bound gold from listing and selling their items of choice to a customer looking for a bus. Sure, buzzers could just switch to listing tier 4 1680 ancient accessories to continue their services for tradable gold, but the objective is to curb busing as much as possible, since busing will never truly stop or go away. At the end of the day, buzzers should no longer be able to earn tradable gold from offering their services to drive customers through homework raids, whether it's Behemoth, Echidna, Daemine, Akan, or etc. They all have become trivial due to the nerfs that have been applied to them. Then there was also the huge damage increase provided from unlocking Hyper Awakening to Arc passive, or to simply being overgeared. Anyways, potential customers looking for a bus on characters under item level 1680 cannot purchase any tier 4 ancient accessories. As a result, the only raids where buzzers could obtain unbound gold from listing and selling tier 4 1680 ancient accessories would be hard mode Aegir, hard mode Icebrow Shaza, and any future raids requiring a minimum of 1680 item level. If buzzers can offer their services for those specific raids, then honestly that's respectable and they would deserve to earn a fee for their service. Now let's address alt accounts. Players should remain free to do what they want with their own time. However, alt accounts and alt rosters does have a clear effect on the economy, as the two are means of printing and pumping more tradable gold that normally would not have existed in current quantities. There would definitely be less gold in the game, and inflation would be more under control if not for past events such as Ignite servers plus Mokoko Bootcamp that made pushing a 1640 character accessible to everybody, coupled with all the hidden busting operations that continue to take advantage of the current circumstances with how quick and easy 1640 raids are. So with the theory of the market auction house integration with the bound gold system, all the accounts and alt rosters will no longer harm the economy and no longer contribute to inflation. They will become vessels to funnel gold that will be bounded once they start laundering it to the main account. Players are then free to continue making alt accounts or alt rosters for more revenues of bound gold to assist with their own personal progression. If there are concerns over alt accounts or alt rosters abusing the mailing feature, to bypass this measure, an AGS can make it where any transactions that happen in a mailing system will convert the stuff to be bound. You might ask why not include the trading feature. Well, that's because it usually involves two individual player accounts to engage with one another in person in the same area. Versus mailing, where players get to send whatever they want to whoever they want, whenever they want, on the same server with no real restrictions. If you think about it, it's really not the same thing. For example, player A wants to give player B his gems. If he chooses to mail his gems to player B, then he will never get his gems again, as it would have become roster bound once player B received them from the mailing system. However, if he chooses to trade his gems to player B, then he could still get back his gems later on in the future, as the trading system remains as it is. Sure, players with alt accounts can get away with having multiple computers in real life, but honestly that's a risk they are actively taking, as there are receipts and laws for everything in the game. It's just a matter of when the hammer will get to those with alt accounts in my opinion. Now let's address the state of the game's economy and inflation. As you may have realized by now, the theory on the integration of the market auction house with the bound gold system is a forced trigger to start the process of deflation by sapping gold out of circulation with most transactions that take place in the game. While the current market auction house prices may be partially dictated by supply and demand, we cannot ignore the total amount of gold in existence that continues to infinitely circulate within the game's economy, as well as the fact there are hundreds of players, if not thousands, who are hoarding millions of gold, to the fact that right now gold generation and gold printing severely outpaces the rate of gold being deleted from gold sinks and players' vertical progression to the small fees or taxes thinly spread across the game. If the game continues being its status quo, then the weekly gold that each player earns from raids or selling whatever they farm will gradually continue to be devalued. That being said, how can players be reliable consumers and participants of the market auction house when prices of everything may increase with ever-growing inflation, while also being forced to compete against whales or G2G enjoyers with higher purchasing power and wealth disparity? The damage has been done already, and people are sitting on all the gold they accumulated so far, but for a moment, just think about this. The integration of the market auction house with the bound gold system will start to put all players on a similar playing field, as every player will be generating the same amount of unbound gold from their weekly raids to spend. This means that players will eventually have similar purchasing power against one another. Due to less wealth inequality, as well as all the gold that has been generated or hoarded so far, will gradually be converted into bound gold as players continue to interact with the integrated market auction house for fusion materials or relic books, while busters, alt account enjoyers, and multi-boxers may no longer be earning twice to 3 times the amount an average player can make solely from weekly raids. Players will still be able to accumulate wealth by selling in bulk huge amount of tier 4 materials, tier 4 gems, lucky tier 4 accessories, or royal crystal items, but in general there will not be the huge disparity that exists right now between the average players to busters to out account enjoyers to multi-boxers. So if the team wants to get the game's inflation in control, then the team has to start the process of deflation by implementing the integration of the market auction house with the bound gold system. I am no subject matter expert on economics or a sage on the game's economy. I just make observations and think about things for better or worse, whether I can communicate my thoughts properly as intended. So I'll just say this from my ignorant perspective. The prices of everything, while are determined partially by supply and demand, I will go further and say that the whales or lurking rich individuals heavily contribute to it, as they are the target consumers with the wealth disparity and purchasing power to the average player that solely relies on the weekly rate for gold. It does not help that there are also players who excel at taking advantage of the economy. They will list things the way they are and drive prices up for profit. These players easily recognize that everybody suddenly can make more gold without accounts. They are always ready to take advantage of bot ban waves to raise the prices of life skill materials like fish to soar. They also understand the demand of thirsty whales for desirable items, so they will list the prices accordingly for maximum profit. Hence, this is why the average player will have the perspective that things such as gems are expensive, as the prices are for the G2G enjoyers, the whales, and the dolphins. Speaking on gems, let's go on a small tangent. I initially theorized that when listing and selling any gem, it will result in bound gold, while binding the gem being sold to the buyer's roster. The thought process was to counter how bots could easily move on to farming and selling gems to maintain their operations, while also potentially deleting a lot of the accumulated gold that hoarders have saved so far, and reinforcing the punishments of negative gold inflicted onto convicted RMTers, where they would no longer be able to sell their illegitimate procured gems to get out of it easily. John Paul and his chat provided feedback and basically helped me come to the conclusion that gems have too much of an importance in the game, hence why I included it as one of the few categories of items that should be continued to be listed and sold for unbound gold. He provided an example of a player who wants to trade his gems for gold in the event that the player wants to main swap but needs the resources. He also provided an example of players wanting to lend their gems to one another, and other valid points highlighting the importance of gems and why gems should remain freely tradable with no trade limit nor any bound gold related measures to gems specifically. However, just to bring up the concern again on how bots could just use the strength in numbers to farm gems in general, the team should make it so that tier 4 level 1 to level 6 gems and tier 3 level 1 to level 8 gems will become untradable and unsellable. Those gems can still be merged together normally, but this measure specifically in theory will help address the concern of bots farming and selling gems in huge quantities. Just to provide an example, an individual bot will only be able to merge all their farm gems till they receive a tier 3 level 8 gem or a tier 4 level 7 gem, which then can be listed onto the market auction house, assuming the bot hasn't gotten banned by then, and it takes quite a while to farm those two respectively up to those levels. Now I would like to go on one last tangent before wrapping this video up. This dedicated section will be more of a thought experiment to help understand why prices are the way they are outside of the basic supply and demand talking point. Basically, I believe that the G2G enjoyers, whales, lurking rich individuals, bussers, and multi-boxers are the primary target consumers that heavily influence the prices needed to purchase desirable endgame items. Let's go over an example. Players make around 426,000 to 504,000 gold per week from 6 characters each capable of doing both Shaza, Aegir, and Echidna. Let's now pretend bussers make around 1.5 to 2 times that amount, and then assume that multi-boxers who are also bussers make around 2 to 3 times that amount. Taking all of that into consideration and traveling a bit back in time before the prices had been established to what they were and what they are now, imagine being in the position of coming up with the price to list a valuable relic book or high tier 4 gem for gold for the first time ever. Who would you price your product for? You would naturally price it to those who have the highest purchasing power so that you can make the most profit out of your transaction. Just consider this as some food for thought so that you can come to your own conclusions on why things are priced the way they are now. So in summary, it's crucial for AGS to work with Smilegate in prioritizing and renovating the current market auction house so that it becomes integrated with the bound gold system. This is an efficient and effective suggestion that can be implemented into the game that will be extremely effective anti-bot measure for once, as it targets and eliminates their supply lines while negating their core strengths and numbers. It will address the controversial core issues around busting and alt accounts plus alt rosters by simply making it where the extra gold being obtained or generated cannot be spent on the integrated market auction house with the bound gold system. It will restore the value and worth of gold earned from raids while leaving room to potentially revert and prevent nerfs to gold rewards. It will pave the way for AGS to undo past outdated measures that turned out to mostly just inconvenience role players while harming the new and returning player experience. Lastly, it will improve the game's state of economy, curb inflation, and start the process of deflation. With the integration of the market auction house into the bound gold system, as well as making all transactions that take place within the mailing system become bound, this may be a suggestion and theory that will be hard to be reverse engineered by anybody as far as I can imagine. It targets the key common denominator found in all top issues of Lost Ark, whether it's bots, busing, alt accounts, RMT to G2G, inflation, and other relevant tangents that I have discussed in this video. Thank you for sticking through this lengthy video if you made it this far. Special thanks to John Paul and his chat for the feedback they provided to help me remake this video, as well as to any streamers that may react to this, or redditors, or Discord mokokos that will champion this idea or this suggestion. But in closing, I would like to say this. We have accomplished influencing AGS to adopt the new policy change for Party Finder. Let's now accomplish the task of influencing them to overhaul the market auction house where they integrate it with the bound gold system. I might not have been the first to breathe life into this new perspective or this suggestion, but I hope I was able to convey my thoughts and theory on this matter. May this video reach the right people to get it to the eyes and hands that can bring change to our game. Until then, best of luck in the fight against Kazuros, and let's get cooking.